and why runners choose to endure the pain through a lot of highs and lows, especially in such a sport that can be very heartbreaking. So I'm Tim McInerney. I'm a Division I runner at Georgetown, and this is based off of my research assignment. And then Maz, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, my name is Mike Mazzaccaro. I'm currently a teacher and assistant coach at Christian Brothers Academy. I coached Tim McInerney in high school. I also competed at Princeton University as a Division I athlete and was an academic All-American at my time at Princeton.
And Drake.
Yeah, hi, I'm Drake Anzano. I am currently a junior at Princeton University. I went to CBA. I was coached a year by Maz, and then I was also ran a couple years with Tim. Currently being coached by Jason Vigilante and assistant coach Robby Andrews. While my biggest accomplishment was probably in high school at CBA, I was a two-time state champ in the mile, and just getting admitted to Princeton University because of it. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then I think Sean, you're up next.
Yeah, how you guys doing? I'm Sean Dolan. I'm from New Jersey, obviously. I run for Villanova. And, I run for the great Marcus O'Sullivan. And, some accomplishments of mine are I was a couple-time NJ State champ in relays and individually. And I was also a New Balance Nationals champ in the mile.
And then last but not least, Robbie.
My name's Robby Andrews. I am currently a volunteer assistant coach at Princeton University for cross country and track and field. I ran at the University of Virginia, where I was a two-time national champion, and I was a 2016 Olympian in the 1500 meters for the United States.
Awesome. So thank you guys again for hopping on to do this with me. So the whole idea, I kind of had my semester-long project. Most of the semester was dedicated to writing this research paper, and I simply titled it "Why Bear the Unbearable? Why do the elite level distance runners choose to keep running?" So the whole idea kind of came to fruition when I was reading Again the Carthage, the sequel to Once a Runner. I don't know how many of you guys have read it, and one of the characters in the book said something along the lines of, "Running tends to be a sport where runners choose or self-select for manic depression, and that's why they're drawn to the sport, because of the endorphins that the sport gives off." So I thought that was really interesting, and that got my mind kind of going. It took me to like a lot of different places, did a lot of different research on that, and then as Maz and Drake know, I did some surveys as well with about 50 Division I or post-Division I runners with some Georgetown alumni, as well as some Christian Brothers Academy alumni. So kind of based off of that, I then went into research on just depression in general and mental health and how they're connected in sports. So I formulated from my thesis the top 3 reasons, which were my raw ideas why I think the elite part of the sport, and I think everyone in here can kind of consider themselves in that category, why they choose to endure something that is very painful most of the time. And I kind of came to 3 solutions. They can have more than one. They either, number one, have an extreme will to win, which, as I'm sure everyone in this kind of conversation has shown at some point or another in their running career. 2, they want to find their own personal limits. That I kind of went in to discuss runners like Pre and people like that, whose sole goal was to see how far they could push themselves. And then the third, and the one that I thought was the hardest to explain, but maybe the most important, was the need to feel something. So I just wanted to kind of know your guys' thoughts on maybe why your basic thought as to why you think the elite level runners choose to continue running when it's something that's not very pleasant to begin with. So whoever has got any thoughts.
Well, I mean, like the first point you made with people just like to win. I mean, I feel like, winning's fun. And obviously as you get higher and higher up in the competition, and as Robbie's competing at the highest level there is, and winning's tough at that level, but it's a lot more rewarding and it's really fun. So I know in high school, as starting off as a freshman, and you weren't winning much, but then by the time you're a junior or senior and you start winning races, you realize how rewarding it is and how fun that could be. So obviously stepping into college, me being a freshman this past year and being hurt, it was pretty tough with not being able to have a lot of wins or not being able to win at all. So I feel like as people, or as runners specifically, just go through those ranks and go through those different thresholds of being young again and grinding your way back up to the top and feeling that sake of winning again. I think that's the reason why people keep coming back for that, is that grind of wanting to be able to earn that right to say they're a winner again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was also something I talked about, was how the lows can be so extreme that it's sometimes confusing as to why you can watch someone from afar and see them keep trying and keep going when it proves to be very difficult. So I was wondering if anyone else had any thoughts on that as well.
One thing I would say to kind of go along with the will to win is also not really the opposite of that, but the hating to lose. That's almost I identify more with that. Like, it's almost as if winning is expected and like the like default go-to. It's like, yeah, of course I'm going to win. It's like I hate the thought of not winning, and so it's like I hate the thought of losing. That's kind of something that I think keeps a lot of people coming back, is that something with running, you can if you were to win every single race you run, like, you're doing pretty good. And that's almost like an addicting feeling, is that knowing that you're on that day on that track, that you're untouchable and you're unbeatable. And I think that people chasing that feeling is very, very strong.
Absolutely. And I'm sure like Drake and Maz can even attest to that. I've unfortunately, I never really got to watch Maz race in person, but I watched Drake race in person a lot.
It was good. It was good.
Maz racing, but I'm sure they can definitely kind of attest to that same feeling where you feel unbeatable and nothing really beats that. So it's always that climb to get back to that feeling again.
I'll never forget. I'd been hurt for a year before Coach Jason Vigilante came over to Princeton. We sat down and kind of, just asked some generic questions, but they got pointed fairly quickly. And the first thing he asked was, "Are you burnt out?" And I said, "No, I didn't think so from being hurt. I was hurt my freshman year. I'm sure like a lot of people are." And he said, "Well, why do you run?" And I specifically remember saying, like, "I like to win," which, if you know Vig, that's the right answer. And so I think, and so I said, "Okay, we can work with that." And I think that's part of it, is that if you have the desire to win, that one's hard to go away because it's the most elusive, and people chase it the hardest. If you like running because of the social aspect, or you like running because, it makes you feel good, that's 100%. That's where I'm at in my life, far more now than maybe I was, 4 years ago. But in college, the desire to win is, I think, what separates, to a degree, the people who are going to chase it at a higher level and the people who like coming to practice every day just to be a part of something. Both noble causes, but I think that's the difference between those guys who are really, chasing after it at the next level, is they have some goal, so to speak, beyond just bettering themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I said, when I kind of began to research this, that was the first thing that came to mind, was that like the elite level do it because they like to win. You can look at anyone that's a professional runner, anyone in the U.S. that has won, and you can tell just kind of immediately about the way they carry themselves that they like to win, and that is a big motivating factor towards bringing themselves back from injuries or from low points or anything like that. So, Drake, do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that all the points that Sean, Maz, and Robbie brought up were great. But going with the desire to win thing, I really think that, like, when you want to win so bad, it really makes you appreciate the process of getting to to be the top, and like going through the the early phases when you're not feeling the best and you're not in tip top shape. It really makes you you love going to practice every day with like your friends and like putting in the work, and it makes hurting worth it at the end,
Absolutely. And I think a big thing I also kind of looked into was how there's the two different sides to running. There's like the spiritual side, like you want to win because for yourself you enjoy that, or you run because you want to find your own limits. And then there was also another thing I got into, was the big scientific side of things. So that's kind of where my surveys came into play. And essentially, I just wanted to know, how does running make people feel from a statistical standpoint? So out of the roughly 50 Division I runners that I surveyed, 91.7% of them said that running improved their mental health. So I was wondering if any of you might have had any thoughts on running in connection to mental health and maybe that being a motivating factor.
Yeah, I guess I'll start off with it. And I think this goes to your third point a little bit about wanting to feel something. I was hurt for quite some time in college. My first 2 years, I didn't run a single race. And I remember trying to explain morning doubles are kind of maybe a rite of rituals for some teams. And maybe they know the guy that sleeps through them. And I remember to a degree not going to really any morning doubles my first 2 years when I wasn't contributing to the team. And trying to get across the point that, I didn't feel anything from it. I just felt exhausted going because I got nothing from it. And that those were actually just, instead of going to practice 7 days a week, I had to go 9 days a week to be reminded that I wasn't really doing anything particularly helpful to the team. And it seemed like just 2 extra times of being reminded of not being great or not being, useful in a sense. Whereas a lot of guys, they look at the morning doubles as an opportunity, the exact opposite. In the exact opposite way I looked at it as I got better, as like 2 days extra to be somebody, to be something. And to me, that kind of summed up my feelings with how running could affect your mental health. It goes from like you're seeking out every opportunity to be better, or you're shrieking away from opportunities, even though they would objectively make you better if you can get an extra 20-minute swim or whatever. The mental side of things became a little, too much for something like a double.
Yeah, definitely. And that was something I definitely saw where the opportunity to feel better obviously all three of the points I made, they all kind of go hand in hand. If you're winning, you feel good about yourself. If you're pushing your limits as far as you think you possibly can, you're obviously feeling good about yourselves. And then if you're feeling something, the need to feel, ideally, most people like to feel good. And it's a rarity in the sport because feeling something often comes through pain. But I definitely agree in that, the mindset of looking at things like an opportunity or the need to feel definitely plays a big factor in it. And that kind of ties into something else I looked into. Was I asked in the survey that I know, like I said, I knew Maz and Drake saw the survey, and Robbie and Sean didn't. But I made it anonymous so I could ask the question, do you or have you ever been diagnosed with depression, or do you self-select for having depression? And out of the roughly 50 people, 41.7% said they had. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure how that number kind of played into things and what the number really meant. And then I looked at the rest of the world, and it's only 6.7% of the world self-selects or is diagnosed with depression. So I was wondering, and this is kind of switching scales a little bit here, but how you think, that part of mental health can factor into a sport where you spend a lot of hours alone in your own head doing something that isn't too comfortable.
I guess I got something I can comment on that about. So I don't know very much about depression and how I can't speak much about depression, but with running in terms of people feeling depressive thoughts and getting down after races and whatnot, I would say that I think that running gives individuals such a strong identity to hang on to that it, in my experience, so in the last month, the Olympics were postponed, and there was a couple week period there where we didn't know when they were being postponed to. And so for me, as a 2016 Olympian, I felt like my identity was stripped of me because I didn't know if I'd have another chance to try out for the Olympics and be an Olympian again in 2020 or 2021, what have you. And I remember when they set a date for that 2021, it's going to go on, I had this rejuvenated feeling of like my identity's back. Like I can now claim that I'm going for the next Olympic team. And so I think running in general, and it doesn't have to be the Olympic level, of course, but having running to hang on to can kind of give you that identity, and then I can see how that can kind of pull people out of their depressive thoughts and that depressive state.
Absolutely. And even kind of off the topic of less just like depression itself and more just like I said, the need to feel it and things of that nature. You often tend to find people who have similar needs who are not in the sport. I kind of then connected the very distant realities of kind of people that are addicted to substances such as drugs and alcohol and severely addicted. And then I kind of try to connect that to running and how, at least through my experiences, I've seen that a lot of the elite level runners, I think, in my opinion, are addicted to the sport. And then I kind of did some scientific background research to that. And, it's a commonly known thing that, running gives off endorphins and that a runner's high is a real thing. And then I think the more you run, the rarer it becomes. But I was wondering if you if any of you had any opinions to that as to how that addictive feeling can kind of bring you out of dark places. Like I know Drake and Sean, who are currently in the younger part of their running careers, have both been through some consistent injuries now for a little bit of time. So how do you keep pushing through, and would you consider it an addiction at that point?
I mean, I can talk about it a little bit. So I've been going through some injuries and a whole bunch of stuff the past few years, but what keeps me going through is like I can still remember vividly the day of the 2016 Media Champions mile, even the 2016 indoor state relays meet. And I just remember like doing strides before the race and the feeling of just floating, and like how I even knew before the race was going to start that I could win it. And like that feeling of just being able to float and feel so good while running is just something that, I strive to get back every day. And it is something that like, even in the dark times, like when it's really like you're at your lowest point, is something that you want back so bad. So you're willing to go through anything to get back to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I wanted to connect it towards drug addicts in that sense, in that you feel that thing once and you really are willing to do anything to get it back. And that's kind of why I saw running as an addiction. Sean, what do you think about that?
I definitely agree with what Drake said. I mean, obviously last year I dealt with a pretty bad Achilles injury, and obviously as a senior in high school with the senior spring, like you don't want to be sitting on the sidelines watching everyone run their best times. So I knew if I had to get back to that, I really wanted to be there. And even this fall and winter, when I was dealing with a tibial stress fracture, just hearing like it was an 8-week injury max. That's what I hear. And then 8 weeks come up, and then you hear you need 2 more weeks to follow up. You need 2 more weeks. So that was just like every time you heard that, it's just like another blow to the gut. And so kind of like Drake said, like that feeling like before a race or that feeling after a race that you rocked and you felt good, and that feeling is just undescribable really. And just wanting that feeling back and knowing that if you are healthy and you are running, that's what keeps bringing people back time and time again.
Definitely. So the last thing that I'll ask before we end this is we'll kind of just I'll kind of go through each of you, and I'll take my thesis and the points I presented out of it. And if someone were just to walk up to you on the street, and we'll start with Maz, if they asked you, why do you run, what would you respond?
I guess at this point in my life, so I don't get fat. No, that's probably bad to say. No, in all honesty, at this point in my life, it's a bit of so I'm not like competitive anymore. My girlfriend is phenomenally more competitive than me. She's an Olympic trial qualifier. And to me, it's like, it's a reminder to get out of bed in the morning. And, God doesn't give you too many gifts in life, I think. And, for better or worse, I got running. And I think for better. And so sometimes I just look at, as I say, like some people have, a lot of talent. Some people have a lot of talent to work hard. I got a lot of talent and I try to work hard. So I try to just honor that at this point that, for me, it's easy to have fun running. It's about having fun. There was a point where it was to be the man, and that's like pretty shallow. But I'm not afraid to say it. Like there was a strong point in my life where I wanted to be the person that, they either you give the baton to last, or, you want in the last race of the day. But at this point, it's so much more just to have fun. And, I'm not going to be like the wrestler or like the black belt or something like that. I could probably get top 5 in most 5Ks. So at a local road race, and that gives me enough utils these days. But so much of it is helping others, in all honesty. I find so much more about I go out for a run now to help other people. And I think that's part of coaching, part of running with my girlfriend is running by myself. I always loathed. And now I used to look at other people that they would help me get to my goal. But now it's so much more to help other people get to their goal.
Absolutely. And I definitely don't think you're shallow in any way to say that it's a good feeling to feel like you're the man. Because I think everyone here can say the same thing. Like, I know Drake won 2 Meet the Champs titles in New Jersey, and Sean kicked my ass in the Meet the Champs final. I'm sure it's a good feeling to just, walk off the track and know you're the man. And Robby, of course, the Robby Andrews famous kick at NCAAs. I'm sure there's no better feeling in the world than to walk away from the track and you kind of leave the stadium or the venue that day and know that you were the best person that stepped foot there. And I think that is definitely a large reason why, people always just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And you even see with pro runners towards the end of their careers, the amount of guys that, maybe they should have hung up the spikes, but they kind of just keep pushing forward and they keep pushing forward and they keep doing it. So Drake, if I were to ask you the same question, why do you run?
So I'd probably take a quote from fellow CBA runner Blaze Farrow when he said, "Well, it's pretty freaking fun to run fast." But like honestly, like why I run, like it kind of makes me feel like alive, and I really feel that like when you're running, it's pretty cool to say that I'm able to move, this far, this fast with no help from like any sort of like artificial materials or machines or anything. You're just out there running, and it just kind of. Blaze also said this, and I actually kind of said in an interview once that like it makes you feel kind of one with nature, and you're just out there just running, and all you hear is like your heart kind of pumping. It's pretty cool.
Definitely, and I think a big word I used a lot in my research paper was euphoria and euphoric, and I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that there are a lot of times you can kind of find yourself cruising alone out there on the street, and you feel euphoric, you feel just great, and it's very hard to explain unless you're kind of feeling that and you're feeling that connection in the moment. But I think you're absolutely right in saying that, and I think that's a great opinion. So Sean, if I were to ask you, if I walked up to you on the side of the street and said, "Why do you run?" what would you say?
I would probably say most of the reason I like to run is to compete, whether it's with other people on the track or a cross country course, or even just with myself. Because there's been plenty of times where I've been thrown into a race as a younger guy and no one really expected much out of me, and then I just competed with the guys in the race and ran better than people would have thought. So I just kind of like took that underdog mentality for a while and just really liked it. I learned how to compete I have an older brother, and he and I always worked together, and he and I competed a lot, and our team up at Hopewell Valley was super, super competitive. And that's why we had some of the fastest relays in the country my junior and senior year. So I just feel like part of those reasons why I like to run is just to be competitive with myself, the people around me, and the people I race against, just because I feel like that's the best way to get the best results out of everybody. So yeah, competition is just something that I absolutely love, and I can see that everyone thrives off great competition. So that's basically why.
Yeah, and I definitely think that fits in well with the second point I was trying to convey, that that's competing kind of pushes your own limits. When you're competing, you're trying to prove that your limits are better than someone else's limits. And I think you kind of see that often in any sport with Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, like anyone that isn't the elite, the best in their sport, they love to compete because they love that feeling of pushing themselves. So I think it definitely ties together really well. So then if I was to walk up to Olympian Robby Andrews and say, "Why do you run?" what would you respond?
Without a second's hesitation, I'd say to win the next Olympic Games. And the second that's not my answer is probably when I'm done running. But I really hope I'm not in that category, that I don't know when it's too late to hang them up. And I very strongly believe it's not, but I guess you don't know until you pass it. But no, absolutely right now, it's everything that I do is geared towards winning an Olympic gold medal or an Olympic medal in general, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty simple for me.
Yeah, I can definitively say that you're not in that category. of
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate
guys
it.
that are pushing it. You know, I'm more so referencing the 60-year-old guys that think they're still 25 and competing in the NCAA and commenting on the Let's Run boards, ripping high scores. But yeah, I definitely, you know, that's honestly the most respectable answer possible. Is, you know, you want to be the best. You want to walk out of, you know, the Tokyo Olympic Stadium and know with your back to the stadium that you were the best in the world and you were the best that day. So I definitely think that response of just kind of pushing your limits and wanting to win and, you know, the need to feel that really good feeling, I think they all kind of tie together really well there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I just want to thank you guys for taking part in this for me. And yeah, once again, just thanks for doing this, and thank you for giving me some really great opinions and insight.